switch the language a bit.
Energy Cabinet Secretary Monica Juma says it is becoming hard to maintain the full fuel subsidy that has been running since 2021. Juma noted that in this financial year, the government was going to use 84 billion Kenyan shillings towards mitigating Kenyans on the adverse effects of the high cost of fuel, adding that the unprecedented hikes prices had taken a toll on the government and consumers, causing a financial crisis. A few days ago, the Energy and Petroleum Regulatory Authority had announced a 9 Kenyan shillings rise in fuel prices in its monthly review. This means that for the next 1 month, a litre of super petrol in Nairobi will cost 159 Kenyan shillings, diesel 140 Kenyan shillings, and kerosene 127 Kenyan shillings, breaking a record in fuel cost in the country. The CS said that these high prices had a big implication in the Kenyan economy, saying that the main cause is the war in Ukraine.
A number of dynamics evolved, including the war in Ukraine, which have set us on a path of unprecedented price increases of the energy sector. But when that happened, because that was an insurance scheme, it kicked in. It kicked in order that we can reduce the burden on the citizens and this country. You know that the shilling has weakened, not very much because we are holding out, but the impact of all those dynamics have been the increase in the prices. Good news is we are still standing at a relatively better price, compared to our neighbors around us, and we hope that all the efforts that are going into stabilizing the world, in particular the war, will come to fruition, because that's the only way you can stabilize and provide comfort to the entire value chain of the product, right from buying to landing the product to providing it here. So it is really a fiscal issue, because as I indicated, to the end of the financial year, June 30th, we would have deployed 84 billion in stabilization funds for this sector. So we are hoping that this is going to normalize, because once it normalizes, you can foresee, and the governor of the central bank actually said this, we will continue to pick up the subsidy, probably not at the optimal level, because we are taking the differential, we are taking the entire delta, but it might require us to change that if the situation doesn't improve. But our hope is that all the efforts that are being deployed are going to resolve this matter, and we can go back to a degree of normalcy.
She, however, pointed out that the cost of electricity would go down by 15% as promised by President Uhuru Kenyatta, adding that the government was in the process of engaging independent power producers in a review of the high power prices.
The reason for this is for all to see. The world is in an inflection point as far as energy is concerned. And we, as a leader, particularly in renewable energy, have taken the lead in terms of beginning to cohere a common position, not just of Kenya, but of Africa, as we prepare towards COP17 in Sharm el-Sheikh. So that is why we are here, and we are delighted to have the ability to convene a range of actors, from the public sector to the financiers, commercial banks, DFI, multilateral funders, and industry, so that we can begin to create a pathway. And this is really in line with the government's aspiration for elaborating our own green energy future. The Presidential Task Force on the PPA, it made some very far-reaching recommendations across the entire energy sector. Amongst them, the idea was to really respond to our mandate, our constitutional mandate, to provide clean, reliable, adequate green energy at a low cost. So that report, the recommendations of that report have set us on a path of reform within the energy sector, and we have undertaken a number of reforms. Already, we have restructured our governance systems across the sector. We are looking very closely in terms of alignment of functions at the various utilities across the entire value chain. We are looking at operations to improve efficiency across the sector. And we are now even beginning to think about the future, the Kenyan future in terms of green energy, which is why we are evolving a white paper on Kenya's green energy. Well, the stabilization fund, it was a very, very good, it still is a very, very good insurance scheme for the nation. And when the government thought and stood it, it was in anticipation of possible volatility and factors that we cannot control for. Now, the challenge became that before we build sufficient, and we had built quite sufficient capital within that stabilization fund.
As a country, records show that we have a potential of about 10,000 megawatts. Currently, we have only developed about 900 megawatts. So you can see it's almost a 1%. We have a long way to go. But the good thing is the government has put on all effort. A lot of exploration has been done. And most of the project pipeline we have for renewable energy is actually geothermal led. So good effort, and that's why we will spread that expertise and experience into the African region. Yes, Area 1 Unit 6, which is 83 megawatts, last week marked the successful commissioning of that plant, and it is now injecting power into the grid. We look forward to a celebration to officially commission that plant. Yeah, okay. Having a review of all our operations, and we want to ensure that we are running optimally. We do not have any costs that we are incurring that we should not. And this will be a very good audit, and the results will then give way to see whether we need to cut anything or we need to increase anything. So it's a very good study that we are undertaking.
Juma noted that the president had formed a task force to look into the power purchase agreements, and they were going through the recommendations as part of the reforms in the energy sector.